Hello, and welcome to The Joy of Deving with Bob Hess. I'm Bob Hess, and this is the final episode of this web season. And I really want to welcome everybody who is joining us at this time. This has been a development stream, the development stream of Dungeons and Dragons Online. I've essentially went over the course of this entire project. What we've done is we've gone from the start and sort of the pre-production all the way through production, and now we're past final release for the actual dungeon. And figure we do one last stream to sort of do a catch-up thing, and so that way people can kind of get an idea of uh, what we're going to be doing. Uh, One second. Just something else. All right. So here, let's take a quick look at sort of what I was planning on doing for this stream. Uh, Give me one second while I put it together, and here it is. Uh, Here's what we're going to be featuring in today's stream. Today's stream is going to be a postmortem. It's going to be kind of an overview of what went right, what could have been improved, if there are any things that need to be fixed. Is there anything in the process of after going live? Um, a little bit of information about public reaction and sort of stuff that I thought, some final thoughts, and then last but not least, question and answer. I'm going to do a little more of an open forum. Hey, you can ask questions, and if it's within the realm of stuff that I wanted to do, like what I can talk about as a content development stream, more than happy to discuss it. Maybe show you a little bit more stuff behind the scenes if people specifically want to see that stuff. But yeah, that's a little bit what we're going to do. All right. So, the concept of a postmortem, when we're doing development things, is a lot of times we look at the lifespan of the project, starting from pre-production all the way through release. We try to take a honest assessment of decision making, things that we've done as a portion of it, and kind of bring that forward. Make decisions on, like, look at it with a critical eye from the development side to determine things that went well, things that could have been improved, things if there are any like technical challenges or real feedback or things to keep in mind for the future stuff. We can do that. So what went right? My favorite part about this entire series is, well, I'll start with, I love the idea that we were able to start with a panel at Paxi. We were able to do a presentation on people and get public input into the decision making process on what we were doing as a portion of this specific dungeon. Like we were able to get people to make determines on what is a creature that's going to be featured, what was the villain, and also sort of uh, all of those different pieces and what we could do with it. I thought that the entire presentation through Paxis was a lot of fun, presenting in front of with that panel, and then the voting process of people deciding which of those presentations went forward. I thought that was a great idea. I think that it was something that was a lot of fun, and one of the things that we can do a really decent job of is how are we interacting with the player base and how can we make it a more collaborative art? And also, okay, the second thing that I feel went right is I actually got to use the tools in front of you so that you have a little better of a concept and a formative understanding of what we, uh, as a design team, use. What are the actual tools that we use between World Builder? We saw stuff with Notepad++. We saw all sorts of different stuff as we were kind of going through it. But I think it is kind of important that you got a chance to actually look at those pieces and make determinations on uh, what you thought was interesting and compelling as a portion of it. Like, what I could show you, okay, when I'm going to actually spawn a monster, what does a monster look like? Behind the hood, what is the actual building blocks of a monster? Between the anatomy and actually showing the specific pieces and bits, like pieces showing you the CDB where actually the data was held, and all of those types of stuff. One of the other things I was very happy with, and I've got another visual representation from one of our artists, is I loved a lot of the art support and even early art support that I got as a portion of this. This is a concept piece that one of our people put together. His name is Mike. He's done awesome stuff. He did the preloading screen and stuff like this, but this was sort of as he was continuing futzing with it. He made this great concept art as a portion of it. I think I'm going to actually get it made into a canvas print and put it up behind me just because I think that's a lot of fun. But one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of highlight some of the different work that was done. All right. What other things do I think were kind of important to talk about? I liked the collaborative process while I was talking with chat. I loved the opportunity to kind of chat with people and come up with ideas. I think one of the brainstorming ideas as we were going through it, I think that the idea of making the mini bosses and the supporting characters have a league of different people which have been polymorphed. I think that that was a solid idea, and it came from chat, it came from feedback, and it's one of the things that I really liked about this process is that we could do. We can do some of that. Let's see. One of the other things that I was exceedingly lucky about is all the support that I have from my team. One of the benefits that I have from working here and as we build dungeons is that there are people which pitch in and do a bunch of work. One of the things I was exceedingly lucky to have is Flimsy Firewood was nice enough to do a deco pass, and you really saw the like raw shape of the space and the difference between what the raw shape was and after his deco pass was essentially a night and day look at how the entire space looks and feels and comes alive and makes it feel a part of the city. It's one of the really cool portions of it. All right, let's see. Let's see. I got some comments going here, and the audience participation at PAX was awesome to be a part of. And yeah, I just think that this as a sort of experiment and something that we wanted to try to do, I was glad to be a part of it. I After we had managed to do it, we had a bunch of internal conversations regarding it. And I was glad because this is actually something that I've wanted to do. I wanted to show our design tools for a decent amount. I understand that some of it is that the form of this was sort of more long form, and I could get rambly, and pieces could get kind of a little bit rambly. But it is what it is, and maybe if we were to do something like this, it might take a different shape. But I kind of like the live stream, and I kind of like showing you as a portion of me doing my work, sort of what's happening and what's going on. All right. If I was to go back to what could have been improved. All right. So a few things that could have been improved as a portion of the process was one of the challenges in any workplace, but it's also for game development, is communications. There were one or two times during the process of this where I could have communicated closely and more carefully with my coworkers. One of the things is Flimsy Firewood, while he was doing the deco pass, happened to be a time that I was on vacation. I took a 4-day weekend. I needed a little bit of a break. It was kind of a moral imperative at the time. And he went to set some of the decoration. And when I talked to him about the dungeon, I wasn't clear and concise with some of my understanding, and essentially the first room ended up being decoed as a large temple rather than a Argonessan area for the ritual. So he had to go back and redo that work, and so that's something that I had to kind of work back and kind of look through as a portion. What are other things that could have went better? One of the things that is always a challenge when we're doing development is the feedback and feedback cycle. I think that it was very interesting for us to release the shell and the dungeon in a very unfinished form to Lamania, and so essentially folks could see that portion. However, it didn't really give detailed feedback on the quest as a whole, which was more useful for the final form and changing decisions and sort of shapes of where things went. Um, so those are two things. Um, let's see. Other things that could have other things that went well. Um, the art support that I got was great. I was so glad that we were able to pull off all the different bits and pieces. I really loved the giant ball of yarn. I think that that entire mechanic came out real well. Very happy how that came together. That's sort of a one of the more oh wow moments of it. The milk stuff, and also sort of the converse. One of the things that I liked happened is sort of how we evolved the story and added more story elements to it. Um, what else do I think went well? I played with my play group, and one of the things that I'm pretty happy about is that first of all, that we are able to offer this as a free to play dungeon. I think it's great to for us to expand our free to play content when available and when it makes sense. And in this case, doing a low level version at fourth level, it's a good space, especially given right around where it is level wise, and it's got some neat items. I think the itemization that folks did was great. Some of it has great looks. The big ball of yarn on the mace, fantastic. The thrown ball of yarn, great as well. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy how a bunch of it sucks. Yeah. So one of the interesting challenges, and this is sort of what I wanted to get into, is the public reaction uh, to, to the instance as a whole. So one of the challenges that we have on the content design side of Dungeons and Dragons is the amount of feedback that we get on a normal dungeon is pretty small. Going through Lomania's, we get a hey, I liked this, oh hey, I didn't like this. Not specifically targeted feedback regarding this was a cool story element or this was interesting. The amount of feedback that we got. In fact, a day ago, I went through the forums and I looked for feedback on this instance, and I didn't see it. Didn't see it mentioned. Didn't see any feedback, any problems, any fixes that need to be made, any of those types of stuff. Didn't particularly get it. So a lot of the places where I go to get feedback regarding design decisions that we made or how this dungeon came out goes to watching Twitch streams, watching YouTube, and actively taking in that content, which is essentially a part of the homework that we need to do as designers these days, just because those are some of the most in the moment feedback loops that you can get. It was great to see folks like Strim Tom play through, hear a little bit about what he wanted to do or what he liked and what he thought went well, what didn't go well. Watching Voodoo and his crew go through and just popping through YouTube videos and kind of watching and just seeing sort of player reaction in the raw form. Um, One of the other things I do is I always play with my play group, and my play group we had a pretty good decent time in it. They just they run a little fast. Sometimes they don't read quite as carefully as would be awesome. But it for me, it means that my storytelling on top of any of the stuff that I'm doing in longer text form also has to be really highlighted in VO and all of those pieces. And it's something that I have to pay attention to. So when I'm designing dungeons, it's one of my points of emphasis. When I'm giving feedback to other designers, uh, it's really important. Hey, Edward, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. I hope all you folks out there are having a pretty decent time and having a good day. And thank you so much for joining me for my last episode. This one's probably going to be a little bit shorter, but one of the things that I wanted to welcome you folks is what questions you have for me. This is regarding content design, my experience in development stuff. Please let me know. And all of that stuff. Does my playgroup know who I am? Yes, yes. In this case, my active playgroup is a group that I played with during launch of DDO, and we picked it up from time to time. I'm long term friends with an older developer or another developer who I've known for a while from way back in yesteryear, which was Eladrin. It's our combined group of friends, and we play pretty much every week. And we have a mixture of different characters. We have some cap level characters, and then we have characters which are going up, and we have a couple of characters which have reincarnated sometimes. Um, let's see. In certain cases, depending on where I'm playing, I'm incognito, but for the most part, even when I'm playing with the raid group that I play with, most of the folks know who I am, just because uh, I play with Strum Tom and some of those folks and things like that. Do they razz you for your content sometime in a friendly fashion? Yes, yeah, absolutely. They're like, I can't believe you did this thing, especially if everybody wipes or there's any sort of problems. But really, they give decent feedback. They're pretty easygoing players, so a lot of their stuff is a little more casual. But we run stuff on Reaper One, Reaper Three, all of that sort of stuff, and all of those things. Okay, what is your favorite one-handed food? Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, Tough. You see, I'm really torn between tacos and pork bow, which are not all that far away from each other, but both of them are really exceedingly excellent. Um, but I've had better tacos more recently, so I'm gonna say tacos. That's where I'm gonna go with that. I, I well, you can, and every once in a while you get something like crispy portobello tacos, and it's the wonderful addition of both. But it's a pretty good question. Let's see. So yeah, do you folks have questions? If you have questions regarding content stuff, if you want to, if you have any curiosities and sort of like the background of stuff that we've done, if you want to see any spaces, what they look like in our worldview and stuff like that, I'm more than happy to fly around some of that stuff. This is a little more freeform because honestly, a lot of this stuff. Do you think the community focused dungeon design will come back? I hope so. I think that it was a great exercise. I think that it was a lot of fun. I don't know if it'll come back this year. But really that's kind of up to the marketing folks and if they decide to do a larger panel and what it highlights. We never with our company, it's one of those things is maybe they'll do a Lotro panel next year. Maybe they'll do something like that. But going from there, I'm curious what any wacky issues you run into making dungeons and creative solutions to solving them. Wacky challenges I've had. Sometimes one of the wackiest challenges you can really run into is you made a space that is way too big and you need to cut it down, and looking and reforming and rebuilding it is very challenging. Um, it's sometimes a little uh, saddening because you can lose some encounters that you want to do. And so that can be really tough. And then sometimes it's stuff like moving platforms in our game are a little bit exciting. And what types of challenges can you actually put people in, and how do you rework them? Like in uh, which one? There's a couple of different dungeons where we have some moving platform like puzzle bits, and some of those are a little more suspect depending on how the newcomers room is one of them, which I wanted more from, but it's one of those things that I had to look at the reality of how a lot of that stuff reacts and interacts and how latency matters and all of that stuff, and had to cut back a bunch of it. I mean, one of the things that is important as a developer is that you can spend 3 weeks really pushing, trying to make this cool new thing, and having the willingness to look at it and be like, that would have been very cool if I was able to do it with my tool set, but it's just not working. Uh, and all of that stuff. All right. Do the devs ever raid together when they're testing a new raid and sort of have an experience feedback session to improve raid overall? We do. A lot of times when we're doing raid stuff, we do have a group of people which get together and play through. Not all of them are as familiar with some of the raid stuff as some of our higher end game players, but we have a decent spread. And so we tend to try to go through the different ones and kind of see where they're at for this different stuff. Um, However, one of the things is that we don't have the highest of high end raid players as a group. And so some of the harder difficulties, while they do get play tested and sort of poked, sometimes they don't get quite as rigorous of playtesting as some of the easier versions. Um, I like how you're okay, Edward. I like how your quest turned out. You see, you can see the love of detail in every room. Did you spend more time than usual on the dungeon you created on stream? The answer is no. I spent probably a little less time than I would have. The reason why is because, first of all, the scope of the dungeon was smaller and it was purposely smaller so that I could do more of it as a visual portion of the stream. So this is something that I would consider something that I would probably do in like a normal dungeon takes probably 2 months to 3 months depending. And it really varies between dungeon, but this is much on the smaller side. So this is probably more like a 6 week to 7 week dungeon. With all the bits and bobs, if I was just sitting down going through it. And so I honestly took a little less time. However, some of the polish passes that other folks did were had a little more attention to detail because we were showing it off as sort of a as an expression of sort of the marketing of our game and showing stuff off. Like, and also it really depends. Sometimes people have a little more time to do decorations, or I have a little more time to go back and do action text and make the change where the rat comes across rather than doing it in box text. As you run up, you can see him actually run around and see Squeak. Like that's something that I probably had a little more time for polish on for this dungeon because given a lot of normal times, I was a little less time boxed because also the demands for streaming is a little bit higher. Having an understanding that I had to prep a stream, had to record any assets that I had to use, and had to sort of go over any of the material that we're going to do. So it was neat. I'm very happy with it, honestly. Like, one of the things that I really do like is I do like the additional bouts of storytelling that I was able to enter, like having the wrap up from the main quest giver. I think was really helpful. It just kind of drove home a lot of the concepts of it. I love that there's an optional with the rat, which gives you a much better description, at least from the rat's point of view that's going on. I think that those touches were good. I like that I use more action text than I normally tend to use in a dungeon, and stuff like adding the cows and having the cow sounds, and some of the a little bit of the animation work was pretty good. Yeah, I do like Murph. I love one of the things I like from characters that if you can have a proud, tough character which likes to grovel, that's one of my favorites. It's a really good, a little more heel turn stuff like that. And so I liked it. I liked it a lot. More worldview stuff. What do you mean by that? Do you want to? Let's see. What I can do is let's go over to World Builder. All right. So this is just another look at this specific space, and this is sort of where we ended it up for the initial space. It came out very pretty. They did a very good job. I'm going to fly through this. And when we're looking out, you can kind of see the entirety of the instant space. Honestly, I love the look of the instant space. I love the set. I think that doing kind of faux outdoor running through streets and into back alleys came out pretty well for this. Let's see. What could I show you? Are there any dungeons you guys want to take a look to see what it looks like behind the scenes? Um, Uh, I need to run again to see if one. Okay. Uh, would you ever considering adding more class-based interactions through dialogue, like the paladin interactions with Strahd and Ravenhold? Um, or Ravenloft, sorry. Um, the answer is that we like to do those, but that's sort of a lot of times it's sort of a if we have additional polish time, it's something that we will add for additional depth. One of my favorites is in Saltmarsh. The creature that sleeps below, you having the ability, if you're a good aligned character, which I as an active player know that almost all characters are neutral. Just a lot of players, if you're not playing a paladin, you're neutral. So that there's additional dialogue options as that, or if you're going through some of the stuff like cleansing stuff as a paladin, if you're going through the precursor to Motu, all of that stuff, kind of neat. I think it's something that it's as a storytelling aspect, it's something that we could totally do a little bit more. But yeah, no, it's something we like to do, but it's sort of more of a polished task, and a lot of times we're trying to make sure that the gameplay and the gameplay ability go through. All right, let's see. Uh, is there any stuff that you folks want to see? Do you want to check out any dungeon spaces? Kind of curious to see what they look like behind the space because we have a little time and we can go ahead and do a little bit of it. Um, let's see. One of the interesting things that I can think of is um, the challenges that we sometimes have when we're converting classic dungeons to modern interpretations. Like one of the first ones we did was Temple of Elemental Evil, and when folks went about building that space, they looked at the map, they held it up, and they said, "We're making this. This is what we're going to do." And it's one of the reasons why the space is so large. It's like, no, we're going to do a faithful adaptation. It's why when we went to Strahd and when we went to a number of other ones past that specific one, we're like, okay, we're going to do this more as a homage to this space because a lot of times the replayability of that space and sort of how you can condense encounters down and time boxing is a little better going forward. Let's see. What is some fun stuff to see? No, thank you so much. I've had a ton of fun making this series. It's been great. I've really enjoyed all the interactions. I'm so glad that folks stopped by, showed interest, watched on other streams, watched on YouTube, all of that stuff. The support from the players has been great. A lot of the stuff like that. I would love to see it SL2 from the bird's eye view. See them by SL2. What do you mean? Slave Lords 2. Okay. Let's think. All right. Let's go to Slaver 2. Over on my bookshelf, when we were making this, I actually went out and bought the classic module, so I had it. It'll just take a second for this to load up. All right. So this is the uh, entrance to it. All right. So it starts here. This is the down stuff. Here, let me slow down the flight so it doesn't kill you folks while we're doing it. All right. So let's start. These are the entry hallways going into the outside space. And essentially, this is uh, constructed in a much similar fashion as a lot of it. But one of the challenges when you're actually looking at the pieces is that I tried to recreate aspects of the storytelling that they were doing. And so, like, this huge black box here is essentially for blocking information of stuff behind it. And in this case, some of the cells can be seen through. So as you're flying through, you go here, you go on up. I'm sorry if this is making folks sick. You go through this door, and you have the two locations. Uh, this here is an admin lever. Those are things that we use for for testing so that people know. Yes, this entire instance is huge. And this goes up to the upper section. Does this go up to the upper section? Yes, this goes up the upper section. Which did I close this off, or does this? Trying to oh no, no, no. This has the one person you talk to as an optional. Okay, you go through here. You can look and you can see this down to here into the Palisades. You can see it moves over there. This is the outer courtyard. And as you can see, there's a lot of space. When we were building this, it's a lot of space. All right. So this is the entire section, one of the sections of the dungeon as a whole that I cut. This whole wing. It's sitting here. It's behind a blocked, barricaded door that you can't enter. Um, it's kind of amazing to look back at this dungeon and think, oh yeah, I cut down a bunch of content from this thing. But you can see the individual rooms as they're laid out, and the different monster pods, and also sort of where they're spawned and all of those pieces. Um, let's see. Here is the hallway that leads to the bear, which, as you can see here, is this bear here, which is essentially on a patrol. And so when you open that door, he'll slide forward and do the voice line, and then the floor below you drops out, and this is what a broken floor. After the lighting changes were added, a lot of the old DDO quests have become interesting and cool looking. Have you considered maybe replicating the old lighting sources and positions to new games? It's one of those things is as we're looking through it, it's one of the things that we're trying to do and trying to work. Uh, but I don't know how much of a lighting pass that we're going to go through entire sections of dungeons. But if time allows, we'll absolutely do it. Trust me, the roar was one of my favorite parts of this dungeon. All right, I'll fly up because there's a lot of space. We haven't even gotten to the second space in this dungeon, which is kind of amazing to think about. This is the section there that leads to the end, which goes to here. And that is the end of Slavers here. And that ends Slavers, the first section of Slavers, part two. And then, so that's all the first section before the mini boss. There are a whole bunch of ones which are pretty interesting. The Shara one where you go back and forth between realities is kind of really wacky. What that looks like is a little bit funky, but so this is part two. As you can see, part two, as we run out of side, this is the entire gravity trap. Really, really proud of the gravity trap. We're still going. So as you can see, a single section of this is, and that keeps going. This is the entire cave section. This is where it goes to the end. It's taking a little while to load the last bits, and it keeps on going. So there are a bunch of fiddly quests, and it really depends on the timing of it. A couple of the delirium quests are pretty complex. A couple of other ones kind of have a whole bunch of different bits and bobs. And as you can see, this is still going. This is where you let go people, and that's actually the end of this dungeon. So as you can see for landmass, as it's taken me the better part of 8-10 minutes to fly over it, um, the size difference between my current dungeon, which I can essentially fly through in about 2 minutes, and this one, which has probably about 20 minutes if you don't stop and kill a single monster, is a little bit of a size difference. Um, let's see. Yeah, so that is a rather large dungeon. That's an one of the other cool ones to look at is I'm trying to remember what it's called, but hold on. Kind of a big deal. That was part of what pack? That was a part of um oh, that classic dungeon. We did a really good job. Torque put that together. Yeah. White Plume. Okay. So what did we call the WP? Uh, big deal. Hold on 1 second. It'll take me 2 seconds to find it. Uh, is it Plume? Sorry, I'm just taking a second to figure out the file format and naming convention for what we did for this stuff. All right. Plume. Plume size. I want to see coal chamber for how tall it is, not because I like it, because I don't. All right, 1 second. Um, one of the fun things about this dungeon is I can show you the method in which I shrink people and increase people, which was sort of a fun trick to do, and it's sort of fun to see from uh, the entire thing. All right, that's the starting location. The entire tower is built in a little circle of its own because it looks significantly different. All right, I'm gonna fly a little faster. This is the exterior portion of it. You can see that we built this little town. I really love this dungeon. This is one of my favorite dungeons that I put together. Whenever I'm asked, it's one of the ones that I always remember. So the neat part of this dungeon and how it's constructed is if we fly over here, uh, you can see that this is the top part of the dungeon. And essentially, what we did is we rebuilt the entire dungeon in a smaller size with a smaller cell set, which is called small. And when you get big, what actually is happening is you're teleporting from the end of this one at this location directly down into this location here. And it's a full set, which is completely different. And so we did stuff like we made these doors rather than openable, we made them breakable. A lot of the themes and concepts of this, like when we went through and we did all of this stuff, we shrunk everything, like the boulder is a quarter of the size. But the entire idea is that we were able to make a second cell set of that smaller size so we could give the visual impression that we could do it. And then we've used this a whole bunch of places around. Um, yes, that is occasionally why you get stuck, is because the teleport location can get a little bit too big. And so we should really shift that a little bit more. But yeah, that's a little bit. Welcome, Princess. It's a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us. We're talking a little bit about DDO development and showing a little bit of behind the scenes as we're doing sort of a wrap up of Catastrophe. And I figured I'd take this time to answer general questions regarding content feedback. But I figured that this was kind of neat to show. But yeah, uh, this is that's what kind of a big deal looks like, and I'm kind of excited that I get a chance to sort of show off sort of a little bit of the wizardry that we did to actually pull that off. Um, and I really enjoyed that dungeon. It's really neat. Um, so yeah, let's see. By the way, I'm really enjoying your two-handed. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. This is one of the quests that I dig a lot. All right. So let's see. Other questions. Do you folks have any other questions for me? Because essentially this is a little more free form. If folks have questions regarding like feedback, such like feedback that I've taken from other people and all of that sort of stuff, I'm more than happy to answer it. It's uh, one of the challenges once again for Catastrophe is given the fact that we put it in a more raw state on Lamania and we didn't do a second Lamania for it, we really didn't get a chance to look through and get a lot of player feedback on that. And so that's something in the future I kind of would like to work. So an interesting portion of that Kobold was that was in 2007. That was a part of the first dungeon I ever made. Um, one second, let me fly to it. It was also used in Enter the Kobold, which one of my friends worked on. But essentially, I came into the team as a systems designer, and I made a Kobold dungeon, and I actually built this entire Kobold head. In 2007, while I was about to start working on itemization. And so I knew I was doing a Kobold dungeon, so I went and stole it from Enter the Kobold, where my friend had stolen mine from. How do I feel about guides like DDO Wiki that reveal all the secrets immediately? Have you considered adding more randomness and changing things up occasionally? So the mapping out process is something that players will do, even if you add randomness and things of that sort. Players are very clever and they're very good at setting up and sort of executing and gathering that information as a whole. Um, I can understand that people feel that that's very spoilery and that can be very challenging. Um, Certain types of randomization is stuff that we can do easily, and some of it is much more challenging to pull off. Like actually shifting what cell that players go into is harder to do. It's something that's very challenging to do, and types of randomization can make things really can be very struggle a lot of struggle on our end when we're trying to build dungeons as a portion. Now we can do a little bit of it, and we can do a little bit more of it. But also one of the things is, um, it's frustrating as a player if you don't have a set play group. But the other thing you can do if you have a more set play group, be like, as a preference, I'd prefer to play this blind. If you're talking with players or you're doing LFGs or any of that sort of stuff, I've run into a lot of players which are totally okay with being like, hey, I'm doing a blind playthrough. Can we just, take our time, flower sniff? Uh, but that's sort of how I feel about it. I think that wikis and things like that stuff will exist. I think that those content guides help out a lot of different people. I understand that some folks feel that it's spoilery, but me personally, it's one of those things where if I don't want that sort of information, I don't go to seek it out. And when I'm building play groups, if that is a concern for me, I do my best to ask the play group as a whole that I'm interacting with, not not to use it, not to fool it. Now, granted, even as someone who develops on the game, there are a bunch of puzzles which I don't remember at the time when I'm running through them, and that DDO wiki has saved my bacon. from time to time. So it's a little 50-50. But I understand how that's a concern for people, and I understand getting spoiled and also dealing with public groups and all of those types of things can be really challenging, especially if you want to take that time, but you want the additional play group. Um, yeah, absolutely true. It's fire. It's one of those things that a lot of times we play through blind. One of the things that I try to do when I'm playing with my group is as a group, it's set up. As a developer, um, I don't. I I expect it. It's one of those things like it's there are times that we put larger challenges and larger things of that sort, and when we're really trying to challenge the player base in those manners, we do a little more effective job, especially some of the discovery things that we've done. But I expect it. I expect how to fix this, how to solve this is going to go up on a wiki somewhere. It's just it's a part of the culture. It's a part of how people play. It's a part of how things go. And so I can be even if I'm frustrated about it. It's a reality of the game development's like ecosystem. And so yeah, you can be like, I don't like that personally, but you have to accept that that is going to actually happen. Um, let's see. How do you balance dungeon design when considering solo players versus groups? Will we see more quests that require multiple people or hirelings? Um, for the most part, unless we're building specific content that is marked as such, um, we do not require in normal content multiple players using objects in that sort of method. One of the challenges that we do is we run into a whole bunch of problems. So there are a lot of people which play solo. It's something that we support as a whole, and a lot of those mechanics can become super frustrating, especially if you want to participate in the content. And so, unless we're doing something which is like a more challenging content, like what we did for the Illithid invasion, like that is a place that we could have put something which required multiple people because we knew that we were trying to push that specific. We want this to be done by larger groups. We want this to be a coordinated effort, or in raids where we expect that sort of stuff. Um, those are places where we tend to do it, but nowadays we kind of shy away from that mostly because there is a large percentage of the player base which plays solo and enjoys playing solo, and so we've sort of moved from that. Uh, yes, but that's sort of design direction that we've done, and there'll be times that we don't end up doing that, and there'll be dungeon designers which make different decisions over the course of time, and also the style of dungeons will change. I mean, we've been going for what 16 years, 17 years now, and you can kind of watch as the dungeons are built and how they're built, how the design philosophy of the team has shifted. And so maybe that'll come back into vogue. But currently, that's not something that we're doing as a design philosophy for the team. Uh, so, any folks have any questions while I'm here? What I think I'm going to do is uh, have you seen Fade of the Wild Hunt on YouTube? Zadev. I am uncertain what you're talking about. I'm not too sure what you mean. Uh, if it's the Wild Hunt raid, I've played it. I play it with Strim Tom's team. By that I mean the guild, which has another name which I'm blanking on right now because I'm sitting in front of a camera and I'm kind of a little overtired to be honest. I've been in like 6 hours of meetings today, so it's been kind of a long day. All right. Let's see. Other things that I can mention. One of the best parts about this entire process has been the level of feedback and interest that this has generated. One of the things that we're trying to do as we're allowed to, or as we have time and energy, I think that this process is a healthy one and showing you a little bit more how how stuff is made, how we actually go about building, so that you understand that yes, building a dungeon takes a decent amount of time. It takes a good amount of time. The thought process, the ideas, where they come from. A lot of times, it's a little bit of workshop. It's someone has this great idea, and then it's the group breaking down to being like, okay, that's a great idea. How practically can we do that thing? And what are methods and steps that we can do it? And do we have the resources in the team to build something like that? Or is this just a kind of shift into something? Or is one of the things that I try to do when I'm designing dungeons, it's what are moments in that dungeon? Uh, what are highlight moments of those dungeons? Those things that when you run into it, you'll be like, I will always remember when that happened. There's an early dungeon, and me not knowing the name of it, not great for me. But I remember the first time we dropped in the room, and the 30 fire jets in cardinal directions went off and murdered everybody in our group. Way back when, uh, and that happened, and that's such a memorable moment in the gameplay experience. The first time you see a boulder in Undermine rolling down towards you, that's really memorable. And so what we try to do is make sure that we put at least one or two of those in each dungeon if time allows and things allows. How do you decide when you use large underwater sections in dungeons? I feel like it has gotten a lot rarer as of late. That's up to the designer. The designer really gets the opportunity of being like, "Hey, one of the things that I want to do is a large underwater section." One of the interesting challenges when you're doing underwater stuff is that you really need a method in which players can stay underwater for a decent amount of time, and what method that you're going to do it, or is it going to be more puzzle solving stuff? But I love the fact that it's got water. I love the fact that we can do water-based puzzles, that you can we can do swim stuff that isn't readily apparent from the surface, and um, even some of the stuff that we've done with like raising water volumes, or all the different types of swim traps that we've done, even the crucible and stuff like that. Super cool. But really, a lot of those design decisions. One of the best parts about working on Dungeons and Dragons online is that you really have the opportunity and choice when you're like when you're going into making something. It's as long as it's within the theme of doing what we're doing as a whole, and kind of you follow the this is the style of pack that we're doing, or the style of dungeon that you're doing. You have the flexibility being like, oh yeah, I want to put a huge underwater swimming section. I want to do a trap challenge portion of it. And as long as you can kind of time box it and make it a like a playable section of it, it's that's up to you. It's one of the most remarkable parts about working on this project, and one of the things that I deeply love about it. Really, I'm given a theme, an idea. Uh, we talk about a story, and essentially it's go make this cool, go make this interesting. Here are the objects that you have, which are sort of the limitations of what you're doing, and just know that these are some of the pitfalls of things that you might try to do. Have you ever considered doing any kind of look at favor? If you start an iconic life, you miss out on all of the early coin lord stuff. Some of that you can do in Epic, but Purelin, for example, you're never going to get that favor level. Um, Maybe it's something that they could possibly look at. It isn't something that I know of that's on the schedule. Um, but it's totally something they could do. I mean, one of the things that we have done is that we've been much better about rewarding favor rewards recently, and sort of codified types of things that are added as favor rewards. So I think we've done that a little more effectively, but maybe it's something that kind of the systems team sort of has to decide is in the thing, and there are a bunch of other things which I think are a little more hot button, but it's worth mentioning. It's worth mentioning in suggestions and all of that sort of stuff, and see if the team wants to do it. Um, all right. But yeah. So once again, I think what I'm going to do, if unless folks have any other questions, I'm going to probably wrap this up. But what I wanted to do is take a little time and thank everybody for joining me. I'm so glad that you got an opportunity to get a chance to see the entire process while we're building a dungeon, kind of talking through everything from pre-production when we're talking about ideas. Got to see the PAX presentation, which was awesome. I have always in my life wanted to do a PAX presentation. I've been doing content development. I've been doing game development for 20 some years. It's something that I always meant to do and wanted to do, and I got an opportunity to do it. I got to do it on a game I love, and I love the pitch process. Um, the other two dungeons I think would have been really, really solid. It would have been great to get an opportunity to make those. It would have been fun. Let's see. But also, I really loved this process. This process was great. I'm glad that I got a chance to showcase a lot of the hard work of our tools engineers, our engineering teams, who are fantastic and amazingly hardworking, and also the long tenure of it. Everyone from folks from the days of Turbine, all the way up to right now, which is through WB Games when it was WB Games, and now is SSG. Like the testament that the fact that these tools are as effective and as good as making content as they are, given the lifespan of the stuff, is fantastic. The ability of the stuff that we've done is been great. Yeah, that's some of the stuff. Let's see. Edward says, so or am I doing another season of dungeon building? I don't know. We'll find out. It's something that we can talk about. It's something that can be considered. But it's really up to sort of the marketing group if it's something that they want to put forward. It's also time intensive depending on the realities of the game development schedule and what we had to do. Like I would normally have probably done I picked up a little bit of the chronoscope work, like a little bit of the lifting of the mechanic stuff of it, but I probably would have made between 2 to 3 quests over the amount of time that I was working on this. And so it's a real question on sort of the development end on how much time and effort is sort of worth me doing the series, but I think that showing you folks this is a really great insight into it and sort of gives you a little more appreciation for, on the content side, some of the work that we do. Let's see. I would love to do another series. I hope we get an opportunity to do another series. I think it would be interesting to do another dungeon or even on the other side, some of the Lotro stuff might be cool to show off. Maybe they'll end up doing that over there. I know a Scenario is doing a bunch of stuff over there, which is kind of neat. All of that stuff's pretty cool. You get a chance, you should also check out some of that stuff because it's a little different of a spin, but I think it would be great. Thank you so much. Uh, Glad you enjoyed Catastrophe, and yeah, I'm glad that folks got a chance to sort of see a bit of it. Um, but yeah, but yeah, I really do appreciate that we got a chance to showcase all the hard work of the tools people and also sort of the breadth and depth of the stuff that's doing. Also, all the people which supported me through this project. It's everyone from Torque, who did a bunch of work behind the scenes, or at least took a look at, did some statting, some scaling, helped look at the rolling ball, making sure that it did not knock people over when you were initially interacting with it. Kind of a bug there when we started looking at it because it wasn't built with that in mind initially. Flimsy Firewood for all of his deco stuff. That's fantastic. Mike, I don't know his particular handle. He did a lot of the different concept art stuff I really deeply love. I really sold home, and probably between me and you folks watching is amongst the reasons why I won the contest. Is I had a slightly bigger social media presence, and he put together a whole bunch of art because he's a good dear friend of mine, and I'm forever thankful for that. Let's see, other folks I should mention. Steel Star did the itemization for this stuff, was great. Um, let's see, Flimsy Firewood, I probably already said, who did fantastic decoration. Um, oh, his name, uh, folks who did amazing amounts of text passes and things like that. And I can't believe I forgot one of the developers' name, call names, but he did so very much work in this dungeon. and did a lot of work on cleaning up my text, which is a little bit abysmal and a little embarrassing in a professional setting. But luckily, I have people which are wonderful that I can lean on that. And also everyone from Jerry, who's done a bunch of support for the stream, and all of the folks in the marketing side who did a bunch of this stuff. This has been a stone cold honor to get a chance to present this and also show off a little bit about what we do here at Standing Stone Games. With that, I'm going to probably step away. I hope you folks had a lovely time with the stream. I hope it was interesting, engaging. I answered a lot of questions. Going forwards, if folks have questions, feel free to hit me up. And thanks so much for your time. I hope you folks have a lovely evening and enjoy your holidays.